Section 1. The question of our cosmic island. What if I told you we're essentially trapped on Earth? It's a confronting thought, isn't it? We gaze up at the stars. We watch films of starships zipping between galaxies. We dream of a future where humanity is a multiplanetary species. The idea of freedom of exploring a boundless cosmos. Science fiction paints a glorious picture of humanity's destiny among the celestial bodies. Bustling cities on Mars, vast star freighters plying trade routes between distant solar systems. It all feels so inevitable, so close. Yet, the raw physics of our universe tells a very different, far more humbling story. The truth is, leaving our planet is one of the most difficult things we can possibly attempt. Or flying across a continent. The challenges are not merely matters of scale or of engineering prowess. They are fundamental barriers woven into the fabric of nature itself. We live at the bottom of a deep, deep gravity well, wrapped in a protective but perilous atmospheric blanket. Beyond that lies a void more hostile than any environment on Earth. When we really look at the numbers and the forces involved, the word trapped starts to feel less like a dramatic statement, and more like a simple physical reality. We are islanders, living on a beautiful, life-sustaining rock, in the middle of an immense and unforgiving cosmic ocean. Every single attempt to leave this island requires a fight against the most powerful forces in our corner of the universe. It is a battle we have learned to win, but only just, and at an extraordinary cost for each and every journey. The sci-fi dream of casual space travel remains just that, a dream. This isn't a message of despair, but one of perspective. Understanding the sheer scale of the challenge allows us to appreciate the monumental achievements of space exploration so far. It also grounds our future ambitions in a sober reality. Before we can truly venture out, we must first comprehend the immense strength of the invisible cage that holds us here. From atmospheric friction, from radiation, and from the mind-boggling emptiness of space itself. Our escape, if it is to happen on any meaningful scale, will require more than just bigger rockets. It will demand a profound shift in our understanding and our capabilities. Section 2. Gravity's unseen chains. The first and most powerful force holding us here is gravity. It keeps our feet on the ground. It holds our oceans in their basins. And it keeps our atmosphere around our world. But when you want to leave Earth, that gentle tug becomes a colossal barrier. To break free from our planet's gravitational pull, an object must reach a speed of about 11.2 kilometers per second. That is roughly 40,000 kilometers per hour. This isn't a target, it is a fundamental law. Go slower and you will inevitably fall back down. This is what we call escape velocity. Achieving that speed is an act of brute force, a controlled explosion of immense power. The Saturn V rocket that took astronauts to the moon was, for a few minutes, the most powerful machine ever built by humanity. It burned through tons of fuel every second just to inch away from Earth's surface and build momentum. The vast majority of a rocket's mass is not the capsule, or the astronauts, or the scientific instruments. It is the fuel required to lift the fuel above it. It's a cruel tyranny of the rocket equation. A bigger rocket requires exponentially more fuel to lift its own weight, which in turn requires an even bigger structure to hold that fuel, and so on. We are pushing against the limits of chemical propellants. Every kilogram you want to send into orbit requires a staggering amount of energy, and that energy is locked away in chemical bonds. We are fighting a fundamental constant of the universe with chemistry, and it is an incredibly inefficient battle. The chains of gravity are not physical, but they are absolute. Think of it like trying to throw a stone so hard that it never comes back down. You can throw it harder and harder, and it will go higher and higher, but it will always return. Now imagine you need to throw that stone 33 times the speed of sound just to get it to break free. That is the scale of the problem we face every time we launch something into space. We are not just lifting it. We are hurling it away from a celestial body that is pulling it back with the combined mass of nearly 6 sextillion tons. Section 3. The fiery gauntlet of our atmosphere. Our atmosphere is our life support system, a thin blue veil that provides the air we breathe and protects us from the harshness of space. But it is also a formidable obstacle for anything moving at high speed. As a spacecraft hurtles upwards, it has to push through billions of tons of air, battling against immense drag. But the journey back is even more treacherous. Re-entering the atmosphere is not a gentle descent. It is a controlled crash, a fiery trial by ordeal. A returning capsule hits the upper layers of the atmosphere at thousands of kilometers per hour. The air in front of it cannot get out of the way fast enough, and it compresses into a superheated plasma. Temperatures around the heat shield can soar to over 1,650 degrees Celsius. That is hotter than the melting point of steel. The spacecraft is essentially encased in a fireball, and the only thing protecting the astronauts inside is a meticulously engineered heat shield, designed to ablate or burn away, carrying the intense heat with it. It is an incredibly violent process. The engineering required to withstand these forces is staggering. The materials must be light enough to be launched into space, but strong enough to survive this infernal plunge. The angle of re-entry has to be perfect. Too steep, and the G-forces and heat will destroy the craft. Too shallow, and it will skip off the atmosphere like a stone on a pond, bouncing back into the cold void of space with no way to return. It is a corridor of survival, only a few degrees wide, a testament to the precision required to navigate our planet's protective layer. Section 4. The silent perils of the vacuum. Should you successfully conquer gravity and survive the atmospheric gauntlet, you arrive in an environment that is perhaps the most hostile of all, the vacuum of space. Here, the dangers are not loud and fiery, but silent, invisible, relentless. The first and most persistent threat is radiation. Without the Earth's magnetic field and atmosphere to protect you, you are exposed to a constant shower of high-energy particles from our sun and from deep space. Galactic cosmic rays, solar protons, can slice through DNA, increasing cancer risks and damaging cells. A single, powerful solar flare could deliver a lethal dose of radiation to an unshielded astronaut in a matter of hours. The radiation dose on a mission to Mars, for instance, could be up to 700 times higher than what we experience on Earth in a year. Shielding against this is incredibly difficult. You would need thick layers of materials like lead, water which adds enormous mass to a spacecraft, bringing us back to the tyranny of the rocket equation. We are biological creatures evolved for the gentle, protected environment of Earth. The cosmos is fundamentally incompatible with our biology. Then there are the temperature extremes. In direct sunlight, the surface of a spacecraft can heat up to over 120 degrees Celsius. In shadow, just moments later, it can plummet to minus 160 degrees Celsius. Spacecraft and spacesuits must be incredible thermal management systems, able to reflect heat and retain it simultaneously. It's a constant battle to keep the delicate human body and sensitive electronics within their narrow operational temperature range. A simple failure in a cooling or heating system could be catastrophic, leading to freezing or boiling in minutes. Finally, there is the insidious effect of microgravity. While floating seems blissful, the long-term absence of gravity is devastating to the human body. Bones lose density at a rate of about 1% per month, a condition similar to osteoporosis. Muscles atrophy, the cardiovascular system weakens, and even eyesight can be affected as fluid pressure shifts within the skull. Astronauts on the International Space Station must exercise for 2 hours every day just to mitigate these effects. We are creatures of gravity, and our bodies begin to break down without it. Even if we solve the challenges of gravity, atmosphere, and the vacuum of space, we are confronted by the most humbling barrier of all, distance. The numbers are so large, they are difficult to truly comprehend. The Moon, our closest celestial neighbor, is about 384,400 kilometers away. The Apollo missions, the fastest crewed journeys ever made, took 3 days to get there. That is a manageable, if difficult, trip. But the next logical step, Mars, represents a staggering leap in scale. At its closest, Mars is nearly 150 times farther away than the Moon. A journey to Mars would take a minimum of 6 to 9 months one way. This is not due to a lack of engine power, but because of the laws of physics themselves. We cannot simply point a rocket at Mars and go. Both Earth and Mars are constantly moving in their orbits around the Sun. To travel between them, we must use what is known as a Hohmann transfer orbit, a fuel-efficient path that involves launching at just the right time, a launch window that opens only once every 26 months. Then you coast along an elliptical arc that intercepts Mars's orbit months later. The dream of faster travel runs into another fundamental limit, the speed of light. Nothing with mass can travel at or faster than the speed of light. This is not an engineering challenge, it is a core principle of Einstein's theory of relativity. Even if we could build a ship that traveled at an astonishing 1% of the speed of light, a journey to the nearest star system, Proxima Centauri, would still take over 400 years. The galaxy and the universe is vastly larger than our lifetimes can accommodate. Interstellar travel remains firmly in the realm of science fiction. These distances also create profound communication delays. When Mars is at its closest, a radio signal takes about 3 minutes to travel from Earth to the planet. At its farthest, that delay stretches to over 22 minutes. This makes real-time conversation impossible. Controlling a rover is a slow, tedious process of sending a command and waiting to see the result. In an emergency, astronauts on Mars would be entirely on their own, unable to get immediate help or advice from mission control. They would be the most isolated humans in history. Beyond the unyielding laws of physics lie the equally daunting challenges of economics and human frailty. Launching anything into space is astronomically expensive. Even with reusable rockets, the cost to launch a single kilogram of payload into low Earth orbit is still around $2,000. Sending a single astronaut with all their food, water, air equipment for a long-duration mission quickly runs into the tens of millions of dollars. A crewed mission to Mars is estimated to cost hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars. Where does that money come from? A mass exodus from Earth is therefore an economic fantasy. If it costs, say, $50 million per person to get to Mars and set up a basic habitat, sending just 1 million people, a tiny fraction of Earth's population, would cost $50 trillion. That is more than half of the entire global economy. It is simply not feasible to evacuate the planet. Space will remain the domain of a tiny, highly trained and government-funded or exceptionally wealthy elite for the foreseeable future. The idea of offering a lifeboat to humanity is a deeply misleading metaphor. Then there is the human cost. We are not just machines. We are complex biological and psychological beings. A small crew, confined to a capsule the size of a van for 9 months traveling to Mars, would face unprecedented psychological stress. The isolation, the confinement, the constant danger, the awareness of being millions of kilometers from home could lead to conflict, depression, performance-degrading anxiety. We have never tested human psychology under such extreme and prolonged conditions. The weakest link in a mission to Mars may not be the technology, but the human mind. Furthermore, life support is a problem of relentless consumption. Every human needs oxygen, water, food. On the International Space Station, these are regularly resupplied from Earth. For a Mars mission, everything must be taken along or generated en route. Recycling systems for water and air must be nearly 100% efficient because there is no backup. A failure in the life support system is a slow but certain death sentence. The logistical and engineering challenge of creating a perfectly reliable closed-loop ecosystem that can sustain human life for years is one we have not yet solved on Earth, let alone in a tiny metal box. In the face of these colossal challenges, it is tempting to dream of technological silver bullets that could erase them all. We imagine much bigger, more powerful rockets that could shorten journey times, or exotic propulsion systems that bypass the limitations of chemistry. Perhaps a space elevator, a super-strong cable stretching from Earth's surface to a geostationary orbit, could lift payloads to space cheaply and efficiently. Or maybe we will one day harness light-speed travel and leave all these terrestrial problems far behind. These are powerful and inspiring ideas, but they do not eliminate the core problems. A space elevator, for instance, is a fascinating concept. It would indeed negate the need for brute force rocket launches to get into orbit. However, it presents its own set of seemingly insurmountable engineering hurdles. We currently do not have a material strong enough to build such a cable. It would need to withstand immense tension from its own weight and the planet's rotation, satellite collisions, micrometeoroid impacts, atmospheric weather. Even if we built one, it would only get us to orbit. From there, you still need rockets and fuel to travel to the Moon, Mars, and you still face the dangers of radiation, vacuum. The dream of light-speed travel is even further from reality. As an object with mass approaches the speed of light, its relativistic mass increases, requiring ever more energy to accelerate it further. To reach the speed of light would require an infinite amount of energy. This is a fundamental speed limit of the cosmos. Concepts like warp drive, hyperspace are wonderful narrative devices in fiction, but they currently have no basis in tested, established physics. They rely on theoretical constructs like negative energy, which we have never observed and do not know how to create or control. Even a significant advance like fusion rockets would only partially solve the problem. Fusion power could generate much higher thrust and efficiency than chemical rockets, potentially cutting the travel time to Mars down to a few months. This would be a revolutionary achievement, reducing astronaut exposure to radiation and microgravity. But it would not eliminate those dangers entirely. It would not make the journey cheap, nor would it solve the re-entry problem or the challenges of building a self-sustaining habitat on another world. Technology can chip away at the edges of these problems, but the fundamental barriers of physics remain. We often focus on the mechanical and physical barriers to space travel, but the human mind may be the most fragile component of any deep space mission. Astronauts are selected for their incredible mental fortitude, but we have never subjected people to the kind of isolation a Mars mission would entail. On the International Space Station, astronauts can see Earth, a beautiful living blue marble hanging in the void. It is a constant, comforting reminder of home. They can also speak with their families in near real time. It is a lifeline to their humanity. On a mission to Mars, Earth would shrink until it became just another bright star in the sky, indistinguishable from the countless others. The crew would be confined in a small space for years, with the same few companions. The 22-minute communication delay would sever that real-time connection to home, creating a profound sense of solitude, unlike any other in human history. This is the Earth out of view phenomenon, a psychological tipping point that no human has ever crossed. The potential for depression, anxiety, and interpersonal conflict in such an environment is immense and largely unknown. The very survival of the crew would depend on their ability to work together flawlessly under extreme stress. A small disagreement over procedure or a personal conflict could escalate, with no escape and no outside intervention possible. Mission planners worry about third-quarter syndrome, a phenomenon observed in Antarctic research stations and submarines, where morale plummets and conflicts peak 3/4 of the way through a long mission. On a 3-year Mars mission, that psychological slump could coincide with a critical phase of the journey, with potentially fatal consequences. Ultimately, we are social animals, evolved over millions of years to live in tribes on a vibrant green planet. Our psychology is finely tuned to the rhythms of day and night, the presence of nature, and the support of a large community. A deep space mission strips all of that away, replacing it with a sterile, unchanging, and relentlessly dangerous environment. Preparing astronauts for this will require more than just technical training. It will demand new strategies for psychological support, conflict resolution, and maintaining mental health in the most isolated setting imaginable. So, are we truly trapped? The answer is a nuanced one. We are not trapped in the sense that escape is physically impossible. We have proven that it is not. We have sent probes to every planet in our solar system and humans to the moon. But we are trapped by the sheer scale of the endeavor. Leaving Earth is not, and may never be, a simple or routine matter. It is a monumental undertaking, pushing the very limits of our science, our engineering, our economy, and our own biology. The dream of a mass migration to the stars is a beautiful one, but it is not a practical solution to our problems here on Earth. The path forward is not through a single grand leap, but through small, costly, and incremental steps. Each mission to the International Space Station teaches us more about how to live and work in space. The Artemis program, aiming to return humans to the moon, is not just about repeating the glory of Apollo. It is about learning to build a sustainable presence on another celestial body. The moon will be our training ground, a place where we can test technologies for long-duration habitats. Resource utilization, radiation shielding, all while being just 3 days away from home. The future of humanity in space will depend on 3 key things. First, continued scientific innovation is essential. We need breakthroughs in propulsion, life support, and radiation protection to make journeys safer and more efficient. Second, we need sustained political will and international cooperation. The immense cost and complexity of these missions are too great for any single nation to bear alone. Space must be a collaborative frontier, not a competitive one. It requires long-term policy and investment that can outlast political cycles and economic downturns. And finally, we need patience. The cosmos does not operate on human timescales. The universe is 13.8 billion years old. Our species has only existed for a tiny fraction of that time. Exploring the heavens will be a multi-generational project, a slow and steady expansion of human knowledge and presence. Our destiny may indeed lie among the stars, but reaching it will be a long, arduous journey. For now, our focus must remain on the miraculous and fragile island we call home, for it is the only one we have. Our greatest adventure is to cherish and protect it.